Hello and welcome to the Leeds Up podcast. I'm James and I'm with Dara Cunningham.
Hello there.
Well, Dara, another one of those classic days for Leeds United. Dominated the ball, the stats, all the flow of the game at Turf Moor, but somehow losing 2-0. And it feels like a case of missed chances and the creeping relegation anxiety for us all. But yeah, before we get into that, special thanks to Bligh, sponsor of the podcast, independent photographic dealership based in Harrogate for a long time, 60 odd years. They sell cameras, binoculars, spotting scopes, stock Canon, Fujifilm, Nikon, Sony, and premium optics like binoculars and scopes such as Swarovski optical and Leica and Zeiss. Got an amazing selection of used gear. You can get £10 off when you spend £100 or more on used. When you go to the website and sign up with your email address, a little pop-up will come up. And yeah, obviously we're in October, so we're coming up to Black Friday in just over a month. And I think they're going to have some stupid deals. So make sure you go sign up at www.bassandbly.com, or if you're in Harrogate, go to 6 Beulah Street. Right, let's make this quick so we can all go to bed. I didn't even want to do this. To be honest, I wanted to do the podcast like straight after just to get the podcast out of the way because I've been so angry.
I'm ready for a rant cast. So hopefully our viewers there, I can see Stephen Brown and David Thornton in the chat. So welcome, chaps. Get ready for a rant cast. 2020. What year is it? 2025.
2025. Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
take that year. So
where,
yeah,
where
2
do I
0.
start?
Well, I mean, let's start with the obvious points, which I think were frustrating a lot of people. That we had such a large amount of possession, 19 shots, 47 crosses of the ball. Yeah, and it just didn't go wrong, did it? We couldn't put anything decent together in and around the box to create decent chances, and just lapse of concentration here and there as well, which sort of cost us in the end as well. But yeah, what's ultimate feeling that you came away with?
Um, I fluctuated over the last 24 hours on it. So you'll recall that when I saw the team sheet, I texted into our private WhatsApp group and I said, I'm not happy about this. Perry and Bial should be starting. And you were surprised at that because you felt that Darlow and Stroke were in there on merit. And there's definitely an argument for that. However, um, and it probably came to fruition because if we look at whose mistakes it was for the goal, it was the three people I thought should have been dropped because I'll add Stack into that as well. And when I say dropped, I'm not thinking any sort of punishment or your level's gone complete shit. Therefore, you got to be out of the team. I'm thinking you've dropped a little bit, and there's competition for places, so someone else should be in there. Now I'll start with the goalkeeper. I really think it was a big mistake to start Darlow, and I'll tell you why. We spent 15 or 16 million on Lucas Perry. He was there to be the number one. I mean, no one's paying 15, 16 million for Carl Darlow. So he was brought in specifically. And when it comes to goalkeepers, it is a much more, binary thing. You're number one or you're not. And Carl Darlow was clearly not number one, and Lucas Perry was. So I think if Lucas Perry's fit, regardless of how well Darlow plays, Farke, and I did make the argument previously that Darlow should have a shout, but Farke should be making the call for Perry. If we recall, a couple of years ago, your man Christensen came in for a couple of games when Meslier was injured. I think he kept 2 clean sheets and was then out of the team as soon as Meslier came back because Meslier was number one. I think Farke puts himself in a really tricky position by not making Perry his number one outright, because now what has to happen is Darlow has to have a stinker for Perry to come back in. And if that's the case, then Darlow's confidence is shot. And what happens if Perry plays badly? Do you bring Darlow back in? So I think you should have just went, Perry's number one, lads, 15, 16 million quid, brought him in. He was playing European football last season. He's number one. Darlow, you're number two. You know your position. You're great. And if Perry drops off or he continues to be uninspiring, then we bring him back in. But I really thought he's backed himself into a corner now almost with the Darlow situation. Now, realistically, he probably has one more chance. If he swaps him out for West Ham, he can just say Perry was only back, wanted to give him another few days. He can get away with that, but he won't get away with another match. After that, it is going to have to be a case of Darlow having a stinker. So, yeah, the goalkeeping situation at first, really rankled with me.
Yeah, and I wasn't opposed to what you thought or what everyone thought, but I just kind of know what Farke's like, and maybe maybe it's just me just been accepting knowing what Farke's like, as opposed to challenging that and thinking, yeah, we probably should change it around. And I think Pascal's been good for the first few games, and I don't think anything too negative of him. He probably stood off on the second goal a bit too much, but there was just loads of errors. There's a catalogue of errors from everyone with that one. I think when you look at the stats, and hopefully I've read this right, and someone will correct me if I am wrong, but I think we had 47 crosses. I think they had one successful cross, which was the one that Kyle Walker crossed in, which was a great cross, and that's what you pay for with someone like Kyle Walker. Yes, he may be slowing down, and there's parts of his game that have reduced because he's older, but the quality of the cross was just unbelievable. And just the defending in that, though, just said it all for me. It was just shocking, like just in between two players, neither of them picked him up. But I just felt like all the passes that we were making, and I mentioned like body shape, and which sounds a bit what's the word? Pinicky. Pinickety, that's the one. But the body shape didn't look right for receiving the ball, so they just didn't ever look ready for anything. And Farke has obviously commented that the international break, some players return with little knocks and some late flights, etc. But come on, it's the Premier League, and we've got to be up to spec. And like you say, Dara, if there are players that maybe are tired or have had knocks or not up to it, it brings even more argument to the fact that we should be swapping players around, letting other people come into the team. So yeah,
no, I agree. And before I've nothing against Stroke. I think in the Premier League you don't have to have had a terrible game or a terrible run of games to be swapped out. I mean, that just happens in the Premier League. That's why you spend millions and millions on your squad, so you can rotate a little bit. And Bial, for all the money he was brought in for, he was brought in to play as the number one centre back, very clearly. Really good record in Udinese, good in international football, ended up playing international football over the course of the break, and by all means was in good form. 2 clean sheets, I think it was. I thought that was the time to play him. It's no disrespect to Pascal. Like, he can't start every single game, unless Joe Rodon can, but most people can't. I just thought that was the time, and the real thing I'm getting at here is margins. And Stephen Brown was just mentioning it in the comment there. So in the Premier League, what I've seen over the last few weeks is Leeds playing really well, but then missing out on a point or 3 points on the smallest of margins, the silliest of margins. The ridiculous own goal by Goodmanson, the last minute goals against Bournemouth, last minute goal against Bournemouth, even against Spurs. I thought we were really good against Spurs and very unlucky not to pick up a point. So it's a very small margin as to the reason we're not picking up the points that I think we should. And perhaps that small margin is that Perry is a small margin better than Darlow. And perhaps Bial is a small margin better than Stroke. And maybe that's the tiny margin that you get that you need to get the points. And I think the first goal was indicative of this, because Darlow puts it out needlessly, absolutely needlessly. Now, that didn't lead directly to the goal, but in the next phase of play it did. And that's the margins. It's that one little error that just lets the team get on top, and then 30 seconds later, 40 seconds later scores. Not the big error, but it's those tiny little margins. And the other one for him, and I have to give him his credit on this, he did everything he could to get to that goal. I just watched it back 10 minutes before we started. His hand is in the perfect place to save it. He just is an inch too small to get it. And he's a big guy. But like, he nearly saved that. He really made a great effort for it. But who's 6'6"? And if he gets his hand in the right place, he would have tipped it over the bar. And
he might be 6'6", but are his arms longer?
If
he's got shorter arms, it's not going to work.
No, the T-Rex. But I'm not saying he would have saved it. But what I'm saying is it's fine margins.
Yeah.
And the players we've brought in we've specifically brought them in from a recruitment perspective so that they are better than what we had in the Championship. We started on Saturday by choice with a championship defence plus Goodmanson when we had 30 million quid's worth of talent on the bench, plus, and this is where I was trying to get into the recruitment side of things, plus James Justin and Burnow. So you're looking at about 45 million quid's worth of defensive talent on the bench. Like what was the point in spending that money on them if we're not going to play them? You got to play them.
Do you think tactically we sort of got it wrong? And I mean that in the sense that we've tried to play progressive football, possession football, but actually would we be better off giving Burnley some possession? I know that sounds counterintuitive, but I always think back to a really good friend of mine who I've mentioned on the podcast before. Actually, he's been a season ticket at Lincoln for 20 odd years, and when they played, I think they were in League One at the time, and they played Burnley when they were in the Premier League in the FA Cup and knocked them out. And their whole tactic was let Burnley have possession because they're so used to being out of possession that chances are it's going to be uncomfortable for them, and we'll just intercept and pick up the second balls and we'll be fine. And that's how they beat them. I'm not saying that's the way to beat Burnley because that was years ago, but what I am saying is we sort of know that that's what Burnley are going to do against us. So do we try and be a bit unpredictable and give them some possession and just play the game differently? And I suppose that comes to our Leeds sort of easy to read at the minute. Potentially, I think against sides like Burnley, when they do just sort of dig quite deep and just try to be physical against us, that it doesn't work. And I think more attacking teams, that's where we sort of we come up good or better, should we say? So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I actually think you're spot on. You've actually taken the words out of my mouth. So I had the unfortunate task of watching Ireland over the international break, and we are woeful. Right? Ireland are woeful, right? Just down to the players. Josh Cullen, midfield, played for Burnley the other day. He was crap, terrible player.
Was he the one that Rodon kept arguing with?
Yeah. He was a captain. He's a chippy little guy. But what I saw with Ireland was backs to the wall display away to Portugal. Actually played really, really well. Right, 5-man defense, everyone fighting for each other, clearing balls, getting their bodies in the way, and they played great. Played against Armenia a few days later, asked to attack an Armenian team, absolutely woeful. And I think that's the point you're kind of making with regards to Burnley. Like Burnley can soak it up and maybe hit the break, but give them the ball and ask them to come at you and start get some try and exploit some gaps if you get them on the turnover, which we did at one point, and we can come to that with the Aronson chance. That could have been a tactic we could have exploited, but tactically, I think Farke's got it completely wrong over the last few games. Not completely wrong, sorry, that's hyperbole. He's gotten it wrong over the last few games. This is not the same style of play that we saw at the start of the season that you and I quite enjoyed. That rugged, defensive, battling performances. The first 3 or 4 games where we were excellent, despite the fact we weren't making chances. We've clearly recruited for winning games, 1-2-0, very solid at the back, but we've conceded 6 in the last 3 games. And to be honest, that's just not the style of play we've invested the squad for. The fact is we're weak up front, so it's try and nick a goal, 1 or 2 set pieces, tall players, aggressive. We're not playing like that anymore. We're trying to play back like we did in the championship, just possession football and everything else. And it's just not what we've recruited for. So I think I need to know from Farke's perspective, what is the style of play? Because you've recruited from the back, you've recruited what we consider to be good players defensively, big, strong, aggressive players, but they're not creative. So, where are we going with that? On the other hand, I got to give him his credit because we made enough chances to win that game. We horrendously bad finishing, like horrendously bad. If you want to go into the Aronson chance, I mean, Jesus Christ. You and I think, had the same opinion when we saw that.
Well, who was it who intercepted it? Because so here's a bit of an unveiling. I haven't watched anything back again. I've deleted the whole game from my memory. So what I saw in real time is it. So I can't even remember who intercepted it. Was it Stack who passed it to Harrison?
No, yeah, Stack was putting pressure. No, sorry, it was Bogle was putting pressure on Jaden Anthony. and he got a toe on it, or Anthony passed it back to him, one or the other. And it went straight to Harrison, who actually did a brilliant turn and then ran into the defence, and he dummied the shot with his right foot, which made the two defenders commit to him, and then he just slid it out to Aronson. And you saw Aronson coming into the picture, and you thought, has to be a goal.
So
has to be a goal.
So this is where we join our WhatsApp conversation, and Dara's
You're
like,
out of, aren't you?
I didn't even get excited when I saw it was Aronson, but I don't know why. But at the time, I thought it was Bogle, so I leapt up thinking this is going in, and yeah, obviously it didn't go in. It was Brendan Aronson. I mean, we have to as we talk about the details of that as well. I think it's worth pointing out how frustrated everyone is with Aronson at the minute, and maybe a little bit unfairly with Harrison, but I get it. That goals and assists just don't come from Brendan Aronson at all. You get the run in, but you don't get much else. Let's be honest. I mean, why did he place it right at the keeper? I mean, the keeper was in the end lucky because it hit the post, and it could have easily gone on the inside of it and gone in. But just a poor finish. It's just not got the composure.
But he hit it off the keeper. If you watch it back, the keeper has a stance, and it hits the inside of his leg, and kind of goes out hits the post. Anywhere but straight at him, literally anywhere but at him. But you're right. Yeah, I texted into the group and I said I didn't even get excited because the minute I saw him coming onto the ball, I was like, no, this ain't going in. And it's bad. It's really, really bad. And a little bit unfortunate on him that it was a wrong game for him, because it was a game where we had a lot of possession and we needed to create, we needed to attack, and that's not what he's been good at for the last few weeks. I've given him his praise for the last few weeks when we're defending against the likes of Bournemouth and Spurs, and Aronson, has done a good job there. But yeah, in a game like this where I suppose there was no one else to choose, it exposed him terribly badly, as a really, really poor football player. Defensively, tactically, I've said it before, I think he's excellent, but that's just not enough. I feel like I could do that when I was his age if I was fit. If I got myself that fit. He's got to be able to do more on the ball, and he's just woeful. Like, I hate to compare him to Lee Bowyer, right? But we saw Lee Bowyer coming onto those chances so many times, and he never missed it. And the thing that really pisses me off about it is that chance against us is scored every time. If we concede that chance against Palace, Bournemouth, Liverpool, Brighton, anyone, literally anyone, Everton, anyone, it's a goal.
Yeah,
every time, 100% of the time.
And we'd be fuming at the defence and midfield for giving the ball away in that position as well.
Where's the left back and everything else? Like, it was the perfect opportunity to score. So we can't let Aronson off the hook on this.
No,
that's it. We talked about this last season. We can't give away these chances in the Premier League. Blah blah blah. We just got one of those chances in the Premier League, and we didn't score it because it fell to the worst attacking player in the league, who happens to be our starting right winger at the moment. It was disgraceful that he missed it. It was absolutely disgraceful, and yet no one was surprised because we know he's not a good footballer.
Yeah, and I suppose on Harrison as well. I feel sorry for him, which I know is such a ridiculous thing to say, but is it a ridiculous thing to say? I don't know, but it's not his fault. and Farke said all this at the start of the season. We need more attacking threat, and Noah Okafor obviously out injured, which Fabrizio Romano tweeting it, for crying out loud, like, what is that about as well? I don't know who or what is being leaked to someone like him to say it the day before that he's out, but I just don't like it. If that's modern football, you can shove that part of it in the bin because it's rubbish. It should be sort of sacred up until the day who's in the team.
You're just taking my one more thing.
Oh, really? All right. Well, we'll do it again. We'll come back to it then. But yeah, Noah Okafor, obviously a massive miss for us. And probably coming back to the 47 crosses, 14 of which I think were successful. And it really reminded me every time one was pinged into the box of the desperation of Wolves when we played them and what they were doing to us, where they were just pinging in deep crosses. So yeah, just it's so difficult, isn't it? When we've had a few good weeks of creating really good chances to just sort of half chances, really.
Yeah, but it's the creative side. I got to give Farke a little bit of credit for, because as you said, he highlighted he wanted more attacking threat. He didn't feel we were as strong, even as last season, until we got Okafor, I suppose, and DCL, which we got to talk about chances again. But we are creating the chances, and I think that's what Farke's job is. I think any manager's job is create a system and a style of play that creates chances. You can't blame Farke for Bogle not tapping that one in
Yeah,
when he should. You can't blame Farke for Brendan Aronson not being able to finish the
yeah,
simplest of chances. So Farke's style of play, that high pressing, that's what got us the chance for Brendan Aronson. The deep ball to the back post is what got us the chance with Bogle. So I've got a bit of sympathy for Farke, even though I'm criticizing him for not picking Beal and Perry defensively and for being a little too open in defense. I do think from a stylistic perspective, he's done his job. He's getting us to create chances. We can't keep missing sitters. Like what more? He can't run on the pitch himself and finish those. And actually, ironically, I still think him at his age would have finished both of those bloody chances because they were both super
yeah.
easy. And no disrespect to Bogle, we know he's been wonderful. But you know he'll be disgusted with himself for missing that chance. But on that side of things, I suppose you have to have a look at their second goal, which, to be fair, again, mistake by Strauchan giving the ball away, but then Stack, like, woeful, absolutely woeful.
Dara's having a cough, so I'll step in. Yeah, I mean, Farke's tone was sort of noticeably sharper in all the press conferences this week, sort of saying that relatively easy to defend and that we missed unbelievable chances, which is true. And I think, like, I want to ask this question, even though we didn't really want to talk about it, because, like, is Farke the man for Leeds United? And I say it and I ask it not because I want a big debate, but maybe because I just want to get my opinion out, which is almost like a narcissist thing to do, isn't it? But I think I don't think I'd want anyone else at the minute, and I think he's capable. I just, like you said, I think we just need players to do their jobs on the pitch. You know, you look at the state of Forest at the minute, and Ange Postecoglou being sacked after 39 days, and like creating an unrest at a team. Like, who's going to come in and actually get this bunch of players to sort of work? Like, you know, I mean, I'm not saying there isn't someone, but it seems a huge risk to do it. And so all I'm saying is, I get it, and I get the frustration. People are probably jumping the gun and thinking something needs to change quite big, but I think we just need the little, like you say, Dara, tiny little margins here and there to just start clicking and going in the right direction, and things can change. I don't, you know, there's a lot of anxiety about going down, getting relegated, but it's still really early in the season. There's so many points. There's teams that aren't playing as good as they should be. There's teams that just look really bad. I think we'll pick up points from Burnley at home, and there's plenty more to be won, including hopefully a game this week. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Well, I wouldn't get too hung up on the Burnley thing. And I did see someone online saying, if we can't beat Burnley, we deserve to go down. That's nonsense. Like, because, you know, Sunderland is sitting on 14 points and they didn't beat Burnley. They lost to Burnley. So that's a nonsense. However, on Farke, I hope he's the right man. And I hope he can get enough results to stay on, because I think he's done a wonderful job and probably not received the credit he deserves. But he's doing himself no favours at the moment, because what we saw yesterday, and I think the reason the fan base are so up in arms yesterday, I've thought about this quite a lot, is that it was the epitome of everything we felt was wrong with the club, the recruitment, the manager, and the team. Yes, everything that we knew was wrong went wrong. So you had a situation where Farke picked players who he trusts, perhaps rather than better players. So likes of Bial and Perry. And we don't know that they're better yet, but I think there's a fair argument that there is. We knew Brendan Aronson is brutal and can't play football. with the ball at his feet. And the best chance of the game falls to him. We knew that we needed more recruitment up front. And yeah, our 3 top wingers are injured, our most dangerous 3 players. And you've got a misfiring Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who we just swapped for Patrick Bamford, despite the fact he has a very similar record to Patrick Bamford in front of goal in terms of XG and missing lots and lots of chances. We had Noah Okafor out injured, who was a player we knew we bought with an injury record. So literally everything we thought was wrong with Leeds United as a fan base came to fruition yesterday. And I think that's where the real frustration lies, because if we can see it, why can't he? And I think if he doesn't change it up against West Ham and we don't get a result, I think he's making a rod for his own back with regards to that. And if he does lose his job, I don't think there'll be a great deal of sympathy for him within the fan base, because that's how managers lose their job. They don't do the obvious thing. We had it with Grayson. Now, Grayson just couldn't sort the defence out for years and years and years. Like, just sort the defence out and you'll be fine. You'll be a good manager. He just couldn't do it. And because he just couldn't do it, there comes a point where you go, sorry, but you got to go, because we got to figure this out. And it could be the same with Farke. It could be like, you got 46 million quid's worth of defensive talent on the bench, and you're playing the players that got us relegated last time or were in the championship. I'm talking about Stroke, I suppose. There, and I'm not blaming Stroke. I like Stroke. I think he's got a big part to play this season. But we bought Biol from Udinese to play in the Premier League. Give him a game. He hasn't played 1 minute in the Premier League yet. We've conceded 3. Is it 3 or 2 last-minute goals that have cost us points? Why did you bring him on for 5 minutes at the end? Let him head balls, defensively short things up. I mean, he's supposed to be this incredible aerial dominating defender. So I just don't get it. And I think, as much as I like Farke, I don't think he's doing himself any favours at the moment with this, because he is playing to the gallery of people who want him out by persisting with the same criticisms that we would have had of him in his first season, let alone 3 seasons in with a bigger squad he spent 110 million quid for or on. I mean, realistically, I don't know what that team was worth yesterday, but in terms of new arrivals, you're talking about Goodmanson, Stack, and Longstaff, and that was pretty much it. DCL obviously came in on a free, and that was a championship team. So yeah, I don't know where I sit on the Farke one, to be honest. I'll decide after West Ham.
I think it is. Farke does need to address it more directly, and like you say, it is true when we've had managers in the past and they just haven't made the obvious changes where everyone's like, when a player's just not playing well in a game, you think just take them out. Like, no matter what minute it is, if they're having a bad game, take them out and probably don't play them in the next game. But that just doesn't seem to happen. It just persists, like you say, and I think it does get to a point where you have to just start thinking less about the psychology of it all and your own opinions, to just being very matter of fact as to what's happening on the pitch, and just make the changes that are necessary to win matches. Like, that is ultimately the job, and that is what everyone wants from the manager. And in the same way that you have to motivate players as a leader to stay tight to the first team and battle to be on the pitch and for when they get the moment, the reversal of that is, if it doesn't work out and you're playing poorly, we've got to take you out and put someone else in. Like, that's the nature of it. So yeah, I completely agree. And I just hope, like you say, that Farke can kind of make the right choices and make some positive decisions, because I really want him to do well. I really want him to do well. It's almost going to sound like a bit accidental Alan Partridge, this, but my youngest has been getting into marching on together, and when you're like really trying to get them to learn the lyrics, then you start to re-listen to lyrics more, and then think about it, and it's that we're going to give the boys a hand, which she thinks is we're going to give the boys a hat, and it's it's kind of true. Like, we do all still just have to get behind him. We want to get behind Farke. We want to get behind the players, it's just frustrating when the obvious things aren't happening, and particularly yesterday when you sort of see, oh, here we go, we're going to lump on a load of attackers and hope for the best again. It just felt like there's no real plan to it. It felt like we've repeated that so many times since since it worked against Norwich, but it just doesn't seem to ever really do us any favours. So, not that I'm saying I know what the answer is, but it feels like that's been tried and tested and it only worked once.
Actually, you're right when you bring up that one, and I wanted to talk about that as well. Again, I even think the subs were wrong. There's only one player I've seen look less likely to score a goal than Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and that's Lucas Mecha. So the fact that he came on before Piru, I thought was a bizarre decision. Like, surely everyone can see that Calvert-Lewin with Piru would actually be quite a potent front two. You know, if you had Calvert-Lewin winning the ball and putting himself about and trying to get a nick on it to get Piru half a yard to get a shot in. I mean, that's actually a combination I wouldn't mind seeing for 10, 15, 20 minutes at an end to a game. And then just lump it at Calvert-Lewin, let him battle for it, and get Piru nice and close in around them, Lee Chapman and Rod Wallace style. So you gotta have a look at that. But yeah, he's bringing on Mecha as well. I just thought, what are you doing? Like, Mecha doesn't look like scoring in a million years. He's just not that type of player. He's going to put himself about. He's going to do the hold-up play. You can start him instead of DCL and get the players around him and, you know, play off him. But don't think he's going to come on and get you a goal in the last 10 minutes. He's not that type of player.
Yeah, someone did mention it in the comments. So I really appreciate everyone dropping notes in there this evening. Thanks ever so much. And someone did mention Piru playing in there with DCL, and I think it could work. And I mean, does it segue into us talking about West Ham? Is there any more to pluck out of Burnley? Usually there's a few things from you, Dara. Go on, get it off your chest. Now's your time.
No, to be honest, I think that's about it, to be honest. I think, you know, it's big ticket items when it comes to Burnley. I don't think it was a must win. I don't buy into that nonsense this early in the season. As you've said, there's still a long, long way to go.
That's what's upsetting. There's just so much more of this to come.
And this is what a relegation battle looks like. You know, it does. Well, one thing I will say is it's really disappointing that, having finished top of the league with 100 points, that there's an argument now that we're the third best team of the promoted teams. Now, I know we're Burnley are only 1 point behind us now, so we're still ahead of them. So you could say we're better than them, but they've just beaten us in a head-to-head. And Sunderland are streets ahead. They're 14 points. So forget about it. Hate to admit it, but they are streets ahead of us. So it's sad to see that, because that is a damning indictment of the recruitment policy, that we were better and ahead of both of those teams, and now maybe both of them are now ahead of us. The other one I will say is Stack needs to be taken out of the firing line. Again, he's not a bad player. 17 million quid. He's not the complete article. He's not going to be brilliant every week. So when he's struggling, you've got a top class player there called Ao Tanaka. Give him a game. Give him a game. And particularly against Burnley, where we had lots and lots of possession, we didn't need to do that much defending. Even though he can defend as well, he's not a liability by any stretch of the imagination. He's a fine defender.
That is the classic as well about everything that you've said before about rotating players as well, because Tanaka could do with the time as well, because when he comes on, it looks like it takes him a while to get into the game. So he's not had enough time. Take Stack out, take him out the firing line, give Tanaka some time, and let's do the same with players like Beale, you know, and West Ham is a good chance to do that. And West Ham obviously are struggling, had a really tough start. Potter was sacked, and it's a massive game at Ellen Road, and one that we could potentially get 3 points on Friday night. Yeah, can we do it? Is it one that you think we can get points from? Have they got the new manager bounce? Are they going to get some points away from home against us? Somerville's starting to play well, annoyingly, isn't he?
Somerville played very well. I watched him a couple of weeks ago, and I was about to text into you guys and say how well Somerville was playing, and he was given man of the match. And suddenly, I didn't feel like I was making any sort of wonderful point. But yeah, no, he's playing really well. Can we beat them? Of course we can. Of course we can. At Ellen Road, I think we're going to be dangerous against anybody. We've been competitive in every game this season, bar 2. And I got to be honest, I don't think we were that competitive yesterday. You know, but when the board went up for 7 minutes, I actually said out loud, it could be 70. It doesn't make a fecking difference. You know what I mean? We were just never going to be able to put the ball in the net. So, yeah, absolutely. But I do think we need some changes, and I know Danny
Yeah, it feels like
in
it.
the comments. Danny in the comments said that it might take BL a few games to get going. You got to start them at some point. That's
Yeah, well, you might as well start him against West Ham, where we've got more chance rather than a really tough game against the top side. So yeah,
It's just
and
you just got to
like you
start.
say, yeah,
Yeah.
I think we definitely need to make a few changes, and I'm on that wagon now of this isn't good enough and something has to change. So yeah, one thing we didn't actually talk about, and do we pluck it out, is Hannibal in that game as well. I kind of want to talk about it just because he is in my head and he is in our heads. Let's be honest, but he's in our heads because he's a moron. I mean, because even Parker was like, yes, was up for him, making the challenge on Goodmanson. But all the afters, like, what was that about? That was obviously going to get him in trouble for, inciting and provoking players. And Pascal rightly just came out the way and shoved him like a rag doll. So, yeah, just idiotic.
You weren't listening to BBC Radio Leeds after the match, no?
No.
So apparently a couple of callers who were at the match said, and I'm only reiterating what was said on the radio, that he at one point he went behind the goal to give their goalkeeper a ball or a bottle or something, and he full on spat into the Leeds crowd, into the away fans. Like literally, it was described as he put his head back and whew, spat straight into the crowd. Apparently, the police were near to arresting him on the spot for that behaviour. So hopefully, there's repercussions for that because, yeah, he's a scumbag, but he's a well played scumbag, and he knows his playing up to his pantomime villain. I think we all thought it was a bit of fun. Not when you behave like that.
He's just a moron, isn't
It's
he?
disgraceful. This goes back to when we beat them at Old Trafford in the Youth Cup, doesn't it? Archie Gray scoring that.
It all goes back a long way, and then when he got subbed off, he got some stick, and we've never liked him because he's Man United, and he just can't take it, can he? He's obviously got a bit of a fragile brain about it. So, yeah.
And the sub that came on for them was Ashley Barnes, who, if anyone's listened to Rocco's interview with Johnny Cooper,
really good.
It was really, really good. And turns out it was Johnny Cooper's ratings across the metrics that swayed Leeds from going for Luke Varney over Ashley Barnes. Rocco gave him a bit of stick about that. But yeah, there's another player who could have been a Leeds player coming on against us that we thought we'd left behind in the Championship.
I'm
he's
glad
never going to score, is he?
No. Sorry, I'm glad you mentioned the Johnny Cooper interview because it's really good. It's it's a timeless one, so make sure you go back and watch it or listen to it. It's on all podcast players and YouTube, but it's really, really good. And make sure you buy his book as well when you go back and listen. So, yeah, is that it?
Yeah, I think that's Rantcast 2025. It's a little bit more level-headed today than I was yesterday. I was really annoyed yesterday. But then, as I said, when you think about it, if you're creating chances, that's got to be on the manager's style of play. So while I was very critical of Farke yesterday, I have kind of come around a little bit and been like, yeah, okay, on balance, I criticize you for this, but I give you credit for this. But now you got to fix it because you've kind of ran it to the line now, and you're on the verge of tipping over. So you've got to fix it, Daniel.
100%. Yeah, so we're basically going to be going live most Sundays around 8 p.m. For anyone who wonders when and how on YouTube. Just go follow us on or subscribe on there. And then we tend to have the audio version that goes live the next morning, early doors. It's always a late edit for me. But yeah, that's what we're aiming for. Obviously, when the fixtures move around with midweeks, etc., the podcast might shift slightly, but that's what we're going for this season. So yeah, thanks to everyone who's tuned in on the live, and thanks for all the comments. And yeah, make sure you like, subscribe, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, leave some comments. It all really helps. So yeah, thank you very much. And fingers crossed we get a good result at West Ham at Ellen Road on Friday night. It's a big one. But yeah, thanks again, and we'll see you all soon. Cheers.